The controversial former Vatican treasurer, Cardinal George Pell, has died in Rome, aged 81. The Australian religious leader was convicted in 2018 of sexually abusing two choir boys in Melbourne more than 2 decades earlier, becoming the highest-ranking Roman Catholic to be caught up in the scandal that has blighted the church in recent decades. But after serving 13 months in prison, his conviction was overturned on appeal. He's believed to have suffered a cardiac arrest. For the very latest, we can speak now to our correspondent, Shaima Khalil, who joins me now from Sydney. Shaima, great to get you on the programme. You know, obviously such a controversial figure. Just talk us through Cardinal Pell's background and history.
Cardinal Pell was a controversial figure, but also quite an influencing and senior figure. He is the highest-ranking Australian Catholic cleric. His influence really could not be overstated. He was the Vatican treasurer between 2014 and 2019, in charge of the Vatican's finances during that period, and one of the Pope's closest aides. Before that, here in Australia, he served both as Archbishop of Sydney and Archbishop of Melbourne. He was elevated to the College of Cardinals in 2003 by Pope John Paul II. He made several appearances, speaking of the controversy here, several appearances at the Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Sexual Abuse. And back then it was found that he knew of sexual abuse by clergy, and he did not take adequate response. He had always contested that finding. In 2018 came that shocking case, a case that hugely embarrassed the Catholic Church here and, of course, the Vatican, and really shocked the Australian society, given how senior he is. In 2018, George Pell was convicted of sexually abusing two choir boys in the 1990s. He was sent to prison in 2019 and spent just over a year there before his convictions were quashed. In 2020, he was freed from prison in April that year and had returned to Rome, but he wasn't employed by the Vatican when he had.
Shaima, you know, you've outlined the sort of influence that he's had in Australia. What's the reaction likely to be there regarding his death?
I think the short answer is complicated and mixed. I remember when we were covering the hearing into his appeal, being outside the High Court in Canberra, and a number of his supporters were out there. They were carrying placards supporting him. They were carrying his pictures, and he had always maintained his innocence. We actually got reaction from the Archbishop of Melbourne, who called him an influential and a significant church leader, sending prayers to his family. But of course, we also know that many were angered by the fact that he was freed. We know that the father of one of the choir boys, who had since died, but who prosecutors allege was abused by the late Cardinal Pell, had launched a lawsuit against him and against the Catholic Church here. So it's a complicated legacy, and so the reaction to his death is bound to be mixed.